Hello, this is Jim Spohrer, and I've got some slides to share from a talk that I gave about a week ago, a little over a week ago, for Mark Miller, who's Dr. Mark L. Miller is Professor Mark at Northeastern University, and a good colleague and friend. And Mark asked me if I could give a talk about AI in education, past, present, and future. I agreed, and I said I'll also put up some slides after the talk based on some things we covered. So if you want to get in touch with me, here is my contact information. These slides will be up on slideshare.net/Spohrer. I'll post this recording to the YouTube. And if you want to contact me on LinkedIn or otherwise, here's some ways that you can get in touch with me. And here's some great books that I suggested during my talk that people might want to read. So I do also want to thank those students who connected with me on LinkedIn. You asked some really awesome questions and had some great comments during the talk. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to you all. And this is the abstract that I sent Mark, and it covers 50 years of my life. I'm 68 years old, but I have had a number of experiences through my life at different places, and that was a lot of what the talk covered. The punchline, though, is that I think a lot these days about how we can become 640 times smarter. And I see the primary way we're going to do this is through a speed up in communication for collaboration, ultimately with our AI digital twin. So that's kind of when we get to the future directions for AI in education, this is a little hint of what I think is going to happen. Now, just to say a little bit more about that, because speed of communication is something that's heavily studied. People speak on average between 100 to 150 words a minute, but we're comfortable listening at double that, like 200 to 300 words per minute. And some people can listen even faster and speak even faster. When it comes to writing an essay on a topic that we're familiar with, people average about 10 to 20 words a minute. But when we look at how fast they can read, like if you're reading a book, a lot of people read 400 to 600 words per minute comfortably. And I've got some pointers in here if you want to learn more about this. But I think we can do much, much better, hundreds of times better than this. And I won't get fully into that, but I hinted at it some of the ways in this slide. Now, one of the things I like to do is have people introduce themselves. Whenever I give a talk to a group of students, I usually ask them these 6 questions, and here are my answers to the 6 questions. And I've got a purpose for asking each question, and part of the purpose is to get people thinking about the digital twin of them, the AI digital twin of them that might exist someday. And I do have now a URL here, tinyurl.com/intro for Jim. If anybody wants to introduce themselves to me and connect on LinkedIn, that would be great. So 50 years ago, 1974, I was a freshman, just entering MIT. And the story of how I got into MIT, when I was a high school student, I didn't even know MIT existed. So there's things you just don't know that become very important for you to know about later. And so that was one of the important lessons, is how I found out about MIT, actually from a guidance counselor at my high school, who handed me the application and said I should apply. But once I got there, even though I was still a student, sorry, my cat's stepping on my keyboard. Even though I was a student, I had a great summer job about teaching AI and entrepreneurship to high school students. And I think a lot of my early interest in AI and education certainly could be seen in the work that I was lucky enough to do at EXPLO during the summer. After MIT, I had to get a job. My first job turned out to be a fantastic job, just a great, great job. And it was working at a little AI company around Boston called, well, it was eventually called Verbex when Exxon acquired it. But this was an early speech recognition company, and we did mathematical models of speech and language. And we were even playing with some of the generative AI ideas that are so popular today. and I had stories to tell about how I got my first job and some lessons learned. And I'm not going to go through this in the short summary, but I'll just say this was a fantastic first job for me. After Verbex, I decided I needed to get a PhD. I wanted to become Dr. Jim Spohrer. So I went to Yale to get my PhD, and I worked with Elliot Soloway. We actually wrote an edited book called Studying the Novice Programmer, looking at student programmers and the series of buggy programs that they generate before they create a correct program. We looked at generate, test, and debug architectures, which are popular in AI in education. And I've got lots of stories to tell there, but I remember the question Elliot Soloway asked me at one point, just before I became his student, why do you want to make machines smart? Why not help people become smarter instead? And that was an important question that certainly changed the course of my life. And I was so happy that I got a chance to work with Elliot on artificial intelligence for education, which did lead to my getting hired into Mark Miller's group at Apple in 1989. And when I got there, I had the great pleasure to work with Ruben Kleiman and his team on the SCAPE project for content authoring. Worked on an aspect of AI in education that's very important in dealing with communities, something called the EOE, the Educational Object Economy, that uh, 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 NIST and NSF funded, and got to think about a planetary augmented reality system called WorldBoard. So great time, great 10 years or so, almost 10 years at Apple. And lots of stories, lots of lessons learned there. Again, I'm not going to go into those other than to say, um, it was an amazing experience from an AI and education perspective. Then I moved over to IBM, and I spent a good period of time, over 20 years at IBM. I was the CTO of the venture capital group over there, got a chance to start a new area of research called service science in IBM research, ran the global university programs. That's where I visited 45 countries. And finally, just before I retired, I got to lead the open source AI at IBM, which was also great. And lots of stories, lots of lessons learned that I could go into there. I'll just mention one. When I first started at IBM, I said to VP, is there any way to get in trouble here at IBM? And he says, the only way you really get in trouble is not asking for help. You need it. And the lesson there is when you work at a company that has 350,000 people worldwide, what may seem like a hard problem to you is easy for somebody in that company. And here's some of the books I edited while I was at IBM. And one of my favorite articles is a little short article called The Meaning of Learning from the Perspective of Rapid Technological Change that you might want to look at. Okay, so today I'm retired. I do is mostly family fun activities, but I also do help nonprofits. One of them is ISSIP, the International Society of Service Innovation Professionals. Here's a book that some colleagues and I just came out with called Service in the AI Era. And I certainly have stories about AI digital twins and reinventing the local and lots of other things that I can talk about in another time. But I just want to wrap up by saying one of the most important things that we have to do today is keep up with accelerating change. And the way I do it is by following certain influencers. And here's the pictures of some of the people that I follow. And I urge you to come up with the influencers you're going to follow for achieving your goals and keeping up with accelerating change. And maybe you want to plot them like I did. I have a optimistic. Alan D. Thompson is probably the most optimistic person that I follow, to realistic, and then the doers and the knowers. And so this might be a good exercise for you. And certainly as part of the AI digital twin of myself, it will be heavily influenced by the people that I'm following. I'm pretty optimistic. These are the books I read that make me optimistic. So if you want to be a little bit more optimistic about the world, I urge you to read these books. And finally, to the students out there, I was a student 50 years ago, starting at MIT, and there's a lot of basics that are important to learn, like your health basics, your financial basics, the social realm basics, and then I think to keep really positive, there has to be a certain wonderment about the world. And so I certainly talk about all of these health basics, and I've got a few links here that might prove useful to you, and some funny stuff that might prove useful as well. So I'll wrap up there. Please do connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to send you a digital copy of the book, Service in the AI Era. Link to that introduction link if you want to introduce yourself to me more fully. And I'm not going to go through this, but I have had a very interesting series of systems that I've looked at different stages of my life. And these building blocks just keep getting better and better. So hope this was helpful. I'll stop the recording and share this with Mark so he can share it with his class. Thank you, and bye.